Hello, Storytime friends. This is Miss Tammy from the Pine River Library, here with another story time. This week, we have stories about groundhogs and Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is this week, February 2nd, and it'll let us know if we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter or if it's 6 weeks till spring. Let's learn a little bit more about the groundhog's method for letting us know. It's Groundhog's Day. Summer was over. Godfrey Groundhog was getting ready for his long winter's nap. He gathered lots of tasty green grass and hid it in his burrow. He mixed some straw with mud to make a mound to stop up his doorway. When he was ready and the air was getting chilly, Godfrey invited his friends over. "Friends," he said, "I've got a hunch. When I come out of my burrow on Groundhog Day, I don't think I'll see my shadow." "Hooray!" shouted Sherwood Squirrel. "That means we'll have an early spring," said Penelope Porcupine. 6 weeks less of winter," said Reginald Rabbit. Crouching behind a tree, Ronald Raccoon was not so happy. He said to himself. "An early spring means the snow will melt. I'll have to close my ski lodge, and I'll lose lots of money." Godfrey Groundhog waved goodbye to his friends. He stepped in his burrow and pulled the mound of mud mixed with straw into his doorway. Then he got ready for bed. Groundhogs take a long winter nap, just like some other bears. He brushed his teeth and put on his pajamas. He set his calendar alarm clock for 7:30 a.m. on February 2nd, Groundhog's Day. Then he jumped under the covers and smiled as he went to sleep. Up above, everyone but Ronald Raccoon was talking about spring. "If it's warm in February, we can go to the beach," said Reginald Rabbit. "Let's go buy some beach stuff," said Penelope Porcupine. "Good idea," said Sherwood Squirrel. While the three friends raced into town, Ronald Raccoon went home to sulk in his hollow tree. "Humph," he said again, "I hate spring." Winter came, snow fell. Godfrey Groundhog slept on and on. Sherwood Squirrel, Reginald Rabbit, and Penelope Porcupine went skiing at Ronald Raccoon's lodge. "Whee! This is fun!" shouted Penelope Porcupine. "Not as fun as the beach," said Reginald Rabbit. "Oh, skiing's better than the beach," said Ronald Raccoon. "Not when it's warm outside," said Sherwood Squirrel. Ronald Raccoon frowned. He had to do something. He couldn't afford to have an early spring in warm weather. Christmas came, and the friends had a party at Reginald Rabbit's. They gave each other presents and ate lots of good food. Then everyone went to Godfrey Groundhog's burrow. They sang a carol and left his presents in the snow. At New Year's, the friends blew noisemakers and wore funny hats. "Happy New Year," said Penelope Porcupine. "Here comes spring," said Sherwood Squirrel. Up in a tree, Ronald Raccoon muttered, "Not if I can help it." And then, before you blink, it was February 2nd. Promptly at 7:30, Godfrey's alarm rang. He reached over and shut it off. He sat up in bed and stretched. "It's Groundhog's Day," he said. "Time to get ready." Then he opened his eyes. He was staring at a face in a mask. "Help! A burglar!" Godfrey shouted, and he dove back under the covers. Then he peered out again. "Oh, it's you, Roland," he said. "What are you doing here?" Roland pushed Godfrey Groundhog into a burlap bag and tied it with a string. Then he pushed the bag out of the burrow and slung it over his shoulder. Godfrey Groundhog kicked and screamed. "Roland," he shouted, "what are you doing? Let me out! I have to look for my shadow." "That's exactly what I don't want you to do," Roland Raccoon said, and Roland started for home. Godfrey wasn't heavy, but with all his kicking and screaming, he was very difficult to carry. Before long, Roland got tired, and he sat down under a tree to rest. When he realized he was on the ground, Godfrey got right to work. He gnawed a hole in the side of the burlap bag and scrambled out. But Roland saw him escape and ran after him. He tackled him and knocked him down. He dragged Godfrey Groundhog the rest of the way to his hollow tree. He tied him to a chair, and then he went to go and fix himself some breakfast. As Roland disappeared in the kitchen, Godfrey began gnawing at the ropes. He bit through one and then another, and he wriggled out the rest and started burrowing through the floor. When Roland came back, Godfrey was already burrowing into the ground. Roland started burrowing after him. "I'll get you, Godfrey Groundhog," he shouted. On and on went Godfrey, faster and faster. After so much breakfast, Roland could barely squeeze through the burrow. Every time he tried to go fast, he got stuck. Godfrey kept getting further and further ahead. He raced towards home. When he arrived, he popped out next to his burrow, and his 3 friends were waiting for him. "Where have you been?" asked Sherwood Squirrel. "Are you okay?" asked Reginald Rabbit. "We've been looking everywhere for you," said Penelope Porcupine. "I was kidnapped by Roland Raccoon," said Godfrey. He looked around. It was a very cloudy day. "Just as I thought. I can't see my shadow." Everyone got so excited they forgot about the kidnapping. "Hooray!" they shouted and danced around in a circle. A moment later, Roland Raccoon struggled out of Godfrey's burrow. Reginald Rabbit saw him first. "Get him! Get the kidnapper!" he shouted. Roland dove back into the burrow, but Reginald Rabbit and Penelope Porcupine caught him by the tail, and all 4 friends dragged him out and sat on him. Roland Raccoon burst into tears. "I'm sorry," he said. "I just don't want an early spring." He explained about the snow and his ski lodge business. "You can build a hot dog stand at the beach," said Sherwood Squirrel. "But only after you're punished," said Godfrey Groundhog. "You have to let us all ski free for the rest of the winter." "I'll do anything," said Roland Raccoon. For the last weeks of winter, the friends had a great time speeding down the slopes. Then they all went to the beach. And look, Roland has got his hot dog stand. Now we have a little song about a groundhog. So if you know the song, "I'm a Little Teapot," that's how we're going to sing this song. I'm a little groundhog, fat and brown. I live in my den under the ground. If I see my shadow, then I know we'll have 6 more weeks of snow. You want to try it with me? I'm a little groundhog, fat and brown. I live in my den under the ground. If I see my shadow, then I know we'll have 6 more weeks of snow. Now we have another story. Go to sleep, little groundhog. As the first snowfall arrived in the mountains, the animals prepared for the long winter ahead. Families snuggled together in burrows and caves and started getting ready to sleep. Everyone, except for one groundhog family, that is, they were busy looking for their littlest groundhog. The little groundhog was still outside because she wanted to play just a little longer. She romped up the hill with her friend, the goat. "My little groundhog," her mother called, "please come in the burrow right away. It's time to go to sleep." "Oh, Mama," the little groundhog begged, "just a few more minutes. After I play a bit, I'm sure I'll feel like going to sleep." "5 more minutes," said her mother. "Then it's bedtime." So off the little groundhog went. 5 minutes passed, but the little groundhog still showed no signs of getting tired. Her weary mother was asking for advice. "I know just the thing to help your little groundhog go to sleep." Just then, the little groundhog bounced in, full of energy. "Come, little groundhog, wrap your tail around yourself like this." "Oh, why am I getting sleepy already?" the little groundhog yawned. "My tail isn't long enough to wrap around myself," puzzled the little groundhog. "I hadn't thought of that. Wait here. I'll be back in a minute with someone who can help you." The ermine dashed out of the burrow into the snow to find his friend the lizard. Meanwhile, the little groundhog huddled in the burrow, wide awake. "The little groundhog can't fall asleep? I'll show her exactly what to do," said the lizard, after hearing the ermine's story. "It's easy and it works every time." And with that, the lizard and the ermine scurried off to the groundhog's burrow. The little groundhog greeted the lizard happily. "Are you here to play with me?" she asked. "Oh, no," said the lizard. "We've got work to do. Now, falling asleep must be taken very seriously. So, just lie completely still. Don't move a muscle." The little groundhog tried to stay still, but it was just too hard. "Lizard," she whispered, "how long before I fall asleep?" But the lizard didn't answer. He was too busy snoring. Just then a rabbit hopped in. "Hello, little groundhog," he said. "I heard you're having trouble falling asleep. The trick is to count twitches." "Twitches?" asked the little groundhog. "Like twitching my nose?" "Exactly," said Rabbit. So together they twitched noses, counting every twitch. But before they even got to 10, the rabbit was sound asleep. The little groundhog's parents closed their weary eyes to think. "What should we do?" her father asked her mother. "We simply must get some rest." Before her mother could answer, there was a knock at the entrance to the burrow. There, shivering in the cold, stood a tiny cricket. "I'm sorry to bother you," the cricket began. "Do you have a warm spot for me inside your burrow? In exchange for your kindness, I'll be happy to play some songs for you." The groundhog family quickly welcomed the poor cricket into their snug burrow. Once he warmed up, he began to rub his wings together to play a lively tune. In a flash, the lizard and the rabbit woke up. Soon everyone in the burrow was dancing and singing merrily. Everyone but the little groundhog, that is. She was curled up in the corner, fast asleep. The cricket continued chirping as the guests danced their way out of the burrow and back to their own homes. Then the groundhog family quietly snuggled around the little groundhog and happily closed their eyes for their long winter nap. Good night, little groundhog, the cricket chirped softly. So here are some fun facts about groundhogs. During the summer, groundhogs like to eat grass and roots. They eat so much that they're able to survive a long winter without having to search for food. In the winter, groundhogs snuggle in their burrows to sleep until the following spring. Now that is a long nap. Can you imagine sleeping all winter long? Groundhogs' burrows are underground tunnels with many entrances and little rooms. Before leaving the burrow, a groundhog will poke his head up to make sure there's no danger outside. Baby groundhogs are born in late March after the long winter is over. The mother groundhogs may have as few as 2 or as many as 10 babies in a litter. February 2nd is Groundhog Day, and according to the legend, if the groundhog sees his shadow when he comes out of his burrow, winter will last another 6 weeks. That means 6 more weeks of cold and snow. Groundhogs are very timid animals. They often sit up to sniff the air for danger and then duck into their burrows at the first sign of trouble. Now we have another story. Jeffrey Groundhog predicts the weather. So should we see what Jeffrey thinks about the winter or spring and which one's coming? One morning, after a long winter's nap, Jeffrey Groundhog popped out of his burrow to look for his shadow. It was February 2nd, Groundhog's Day. Jeffrey remembered what his mother had told him. If you see your shadow on Groundhog Day, go back to sleep, because winter will last 6 more weeks. If there's no shadow, spring will be here soon. Jeffrey hurried into town to tell the newspaper that he did not see his shadow. So, no shadow, and spring is almost here. Is that it? Asked Merton Moose. The story ran in the Afternoon Gazette. Within a few days, the weather turned warm, and the snow melted, and the ground thawed. Spring had truly sprung. Predicting the weather is easy, said Jeffrey. The following winter, Jeffrey dozed snug as a bug, dreaming groundhog dreams in his warm nest at the bottom of the burrow. Toward the end of January, folks started looking for clues as to what Jeffrey may predict. Will he see his shadow, or won't he see his shadow? As Groundhog Day drew near, television cameras and lights were all moved into place right around Jeffrey's burrow. This year, everyone would be able to watch the biggest, groundhoggiest Groundhog Day ever. Jeffrey's handsome picture started popping up all over town. Looks like everybody has a sign with Jeffrey on it. Bright and early on Groundhog Day, everyone waited for Jeffrey. Look at all those people and news people and cameras and lights. So 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, 3 hours passed, yet there was still no Jeffrey. Jeffrey? Hello, Jeffrey? Called Merton. Are you home? Oh no, I've overslept, groaned Jeffrey. And he flew out of bed and dashed to his door. And made his appearance. Jeffrey is on all the TVs now. "Geoffrey! Geoffrey!" called Merton. "What did you see? Was there a shadow?" "I don't know," cried Geoffrey. "With all the cameras and lights and everybody crowding around, I could hardly see the ground in front of me, much less my shadow." Now, things are really up in the air weather-wise. Nobody knew whether to bring out golf clubs or to bring out the snow shovel. No one knew whether to wax their skis or wax a surfboard. They didn't know if we were going to have winter or spring. And no one had a clue whether to plug in an electric fan or an electric blanket. All weather reports were canceled until Geoffrey could make up his mind. "Geoffrey, this is causing major problems," muttered Burrows. "We need a prediction now." "Oh, all right," moaned Geoffrey. "I'll have my answer by this afternoon." "So, Geoffrey, how could you predict that the winter will last 6 more weeks?" asked Rebecca Raccoon. "No one was really certain if there was a shadow or not. So do you just guess?" No," said Geoffrey. "Did you make a study of how the weather works?" asked Sunny Squirrel. "Nope," said Geoffrey. "To be honest, I called my mom. On Groundhog's Day, she always looks for her shadow, too." "Whew," said Geoffrey. "Predicting the weather is very tiring. I better just go back to sleep for the rest of my nap." And that is exactly what he did. Do you see his little sign? "When shadows fall, sleep snug, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite." So that was our story time on Groundhog's Day. So what do you think will happen this year? Will the groundhog see his shadow or not? Will we have 6 more weeks of winter? Or will it be 6 warmer weeks leading up to spring? We shall see. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.